A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to this week's edition of The Agenda. My name is Toiwenje Bella, your host. Tonight on the show we are joined by Dr. Job Amupanda. He is a presidential candidate for 2024 elections here in Namibia, and he is here to share with us thoughts around his bid. Doc, thank you for making time.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah, the first presidential candidate for 2024 that I'm engaging already, so thank you for giving me the privilege.
Yeah, so I think there are no coincidences. I think the Black Guard might have arranged it that way, that it's better you speak to the front runner and then others will follow later. so indicate that there are no coincidences.
Yeah, no, wonderful. So we woke up on Sunday last week to billboards on Dangwa, Windhoek, Province Bay, probably elsewhere, announcing your candidature, and that, caught everybody by surprise. I think for the longest of times, we have contemplated that you might get into that space, and then you sort of just never really made those intentions clear until the billboards were up. Tell us just about what ignited that aim.
So we have always said that we are self-defining, self-respecting, and self-directing. Yeah. That basically means that we set our own agenda on the basis of what we want to be able to do. Yeah. By being self-directing and self-conceptualizing, it also basically means that you determine the pace, the place where certain things happen. And yes, people were surprised, but there is also one specific aspect that can explain why people are surprised, because they are used to orthodox ways of doing things. If you are riding a horse and there is that thing that you cover the horse so that it's just focusing on one direction. And this is what public discourses and our space has been, to only see what then happens. So you would think that there must be big press conferences where person would make this big announcement, a big rally, or some sort of endorsement from some big personalities and things like that. So we thought we are self-directing, so let's communicate at a time in a manner that we see fit. But we also wanted to demonstrate that exactly what people are seeing, and that they are surprised by it, and that's exactly what's going to happen next year. And things are going to change, and what that meant, we needed to do something that's significant, because obviously you don't just wake up and do those things. You think, you plan, you conceptualize, you wait for the right moment and time, you ignore the distraction, and you focus on the specific goal. Yeah. So it really what it is that is change, not change just in the colloquial sense that people talk about it, and change is also one of the words that are abused by many. So we wanted, that's really what we represented, that things must be done differently. An old lady sent me a message just that morning, and he was saying, oh no, I was dropping my daughters, she has 2 girls. I was dropping my daughters at school, and they really love the billboards, because he's saying that when she took them, she used Independence, when she is Hosea Kutako, and they saw that billboard. Yeah. The one that says that, well, you said future leaders, and I think the future is now here. Yeah. So you can now go home, because the future is here, that you said we are going to lead. And on their way back, they used Independence Avenue, and they saw that, don't worry, your president is coming. So, and they're saying, no, for some reason, my children really love the billboards. They say it speaks to them. And that's exactly what he wanted to do. And our country never recognized the fact that there is a generation of young men and women who think differently, who feel differently, who fear differently, and who define and conceptualize differently. And of course, we are not claim exclusivity to that generation in terms of representation, but we are highlighting their specific issues. Now, we also want to say, even before we go in the race, before we even go to the race, there must be something significant. What is that something significant? It's that we are indicating that no, it cannot just be things as normal. You must wait for some others. So because what is creating problems in people's mind, particularly people of the establishment, is because you are operating outside the norms. Somebody that I respect, but of course it's their opinion, saying no, there is standards on how to announce your candidacy. In other words, they're thinking that there must be some time declared, and after the time is declared, and then there is congresses and all those other things, when simply just saying, it is just like posting on your social media pages, like updating a status, for example. Is it because it's big? Is it because it's a billboard? Is it because there's nothing you can do? Everyone looks at it objectively but that which has not fossilized in the people's imagination is that things can change, and every time when things change, it shocks a lot of people. But that's not what we are concerned about. We are concerned about the directionlessness of our country. I am convinced that Namibia is on the slippery slope. We are in that vehicle with a drunk driver, and we will all die if we are not careful, because you can clearly see that this guy cannot drive, who's driving. So your only option that you have is to take over the steering wheel of the vehicle. You can be a passenger, you can be at the back, you can be talking to other people to just say, put on your seatbelt, but effectively, if the driver of the vehicle does not control, your life at that moment is dependent on this driver of the vehicle. So what we're simply saying with this direction is that we want to take control of the steering wheel and balance the car and stabilize the car, and then we are at least be able to ensure that we don't go down. So it's almost like you are rushing to casualty.
Yeah.
And at the casualty, what you then try to do is an emergency. You save the life. Then you can look at other aspects. So our country is really, things are going to be very bad. And unfortunately, when things are going to degenerate, these people who are responsible for authoring the problems would be they'll be gone and dead. There is nothing that we can do. You can probably be angry and pee on their graves, but that's all you can do, and agonize and things. So we're simply saying, no. You can't. We can't say no. Wait and what? No.
Yeah.
There was a time where the saying that good things come to those who wait. There was a time when those things. No, there is nothing good that is going to come by waiting.
Yeah.
Good things will only happen to those who go out and make them happen.
Yeah. When you're talking about the driver here, are you referring to the current president, Hage Geingob, or is it SWAPO as a ruling party?
I think we have had 3 presidents. Sam Nujoma with all his weaknesses, but one of his strengths that managed him to navigate is because he was a strong leader. And the rest of the president that followed are quite very weak in different degrees. President Pohamba was weak in a sense that he was timid. He is president, but I think he was still not convinced that he was president. I was told of a story at the Congress that elected him when they were going for the second round, and the team that was in his campaign was telling him, and he just started making comments, and he was saying, so the translation being that, this Idipo, are we going to win against him? And then they had to apparently take him to some room, and just to keep him there so that he doesn't keep making this statement, and because it's discouraging the voters. Because even the moment when the person that you're supporting starts expressing these sentiments, you start thinking twice as a voter. Now that's before he got to office, so he was already doubting himself. So then one day I watched him on TV during the State of the Nation address. The late Hidipo was also, at that time he was in Parliament, and he asked him a question. And he started saying, no, you see, Honorable, my door is open. You must come and give me ideas. Some of you are even clever than me. Why don't you come? Why don't you come? So that's when the man is in office and he's saying, there are people who are clever than him, so they must come him and give him ideas, admitting that he may not have ideas. That's when he's in office. Then he leaves office. When he left office, then he made a statement again and saying, oh, some of the things, I look at the things and I ask, why was I not told? I could have done something. So, same person, and I'm giving you that period. That's an occurrence within the period of what? About 15 years. When, before even getting office, he was doubtful of himself.
Yeah.
He get in office, he admit that he have no ideas and ability, so he needs others to go to him. That's why these parties started visiting State House to share with him ideas. And when he left office, he says that things would have been done differently because he didn't know about certain things. So he's saying that he was not aware of certain problems. So you have weakness in that sense. Then we have President Geingob. His weakness is not the same as the weaknesses of President Pohamba. President Geingob, his weaknesses is that he's self-absorbed. He's concerned very much about himself and his imagery. That is why he would always be well dressed. He will attend soccer events, and I'm convinced that he's the best dancer. If he was not a president and he was a musician, he would be the best dancer that you could find. So in other words, he seems to excel in other things. He seems to excel in dancing, he seems to excel in maneuvering many people, and because he's a survivalist. And I also, because that maneuvering, I also fell victim to it. And I went to State House really believing that we were going to have an agreement that is going to work, but he just needed to avoid. So he knows very well how to maneuver. But the question of developmental agenda for both presidents after Nyoma is very, very, very problematic. So there is no signature type of things that you would have. So President Geingob also started believing in concept. Revival, reimagination, what's another, accountability and all those things. So he started believing in concept, which is good because you need to have an ideological hegemony in terms of the development trajectory, but you don't need to spend a lot of time. If you have 10 hours in a day and you spend 7 hours conceptualizing and dealing with concept and nothing to do with practical things is very, very, very problematic. So the end result, weak presidents from different dimensions. Yeah. So Pohamba, for instance, will not fire a person, and Geingob would ask them to resign.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, because another person would have gone. They get a like you just. People, in fact, you even say people are not happy. This is very bad. When some sources who are part of those meetings, apart from Jerry and Pendukeni, that he fired on the basis of, he really felt offended. He's very much in touch with his emotions. And apart from how he fired those two, the others, I'm told, he would call a meeting, yeah, this thing is comrade me, it's not me. It's the people, people are angry, and it's a SWAPO, this fish rod thing is a problem for us, and so the best way, and I also don't want to humiliate you, you know, can you please just help us with resign? So he pleads with people to resign instead of taking decisions. So the end result is that you have this weak president for 20 years, and the end result is an incomplete project and the directionlessness and economic development deficit. And that is a problem because of what has happened, an unfulfilled promise. Of course, you cannot necessarily hold Pohamba and Geingob responsible whole scale of the part of the problem, because this is a design of the deal at the negotiation table, because they were told that, okay, fine, you can get permission to sing the national anthem, to declare public holidays, and to go in the offices, give State of a Nation address, and you do all these things, but leave the red line alone, leave the economy alone, don't touch those things. So the deal itself is, the deal that we got at that negotiation settlement was a bit of a problem. Just take, for instance, there was before independence, actually, there was a Tyrion Commission. So there was a serious uncertainty among the apartheid economic machinery, and they were concerned that what is going to happen with our economy when these communists take over, the communists being now SWAPO. What is going to happen with our economy? And because of that uncertainty, there was negotiation, but there was also acquiring of serious asset. And by the way, if you just go to the deeds office and see how many properties were registered on the 20th of March 1990, and also just in 1989, the amount of properties that have been transferred and things like that, because of that uncertainty. But even before independence, there was what is called the Tyrian Commission. The Tyrian Commission wanted to investigate the exploitation of the resources, natural resources of our country. They actually found that commission found that NAMDEB, CDM at the time, was overmining. So they were doing overproduction because they were scared of independence. They were overmining. And in fact, some of the officials that were working for CDM went to testify about that specific activity. Now, since Namibia during the time was under the control of the trusteeship of the United Nations, yep. There was a United Nations Commission on Namibia that created UNIN, where Genkob was the director in Lusaka. So the United Nations passed a decree, and that decree was seemingly saying you must stop exploiting the natural resources of Namibia. And those who continue and those who are going to be found guilty, they will be prosecuted by the independent government of Namibia. So that is, a decree exists like that. The evidence also exists of overmining and things like that. So, but Temple's man, who was meeting SWAPO leaders in exile in the United States, because one senior SWAPO guy was telling me that Temple's man was meeting SWAPO leaders in exile in the United States, negotiating on behalf of CDM, because he's a diamond. Maurice Templeman is a diamond guy. And just shortly after independence, he came to State House, and as a result, nothing ever happens to CDM. And that Tyrian Commission found CDM guilty. This mine, which was in this mine that was in Tsumeb, TLC, and all those things. So you could see the deal, the economic deal that was framed at independence, also placed quite a number of limitations. But we are saying we're never part of that deal. I was never part of those engagement. I have no moral, legal, or otherwise responsibility to continue a deal that I was not part of. And that's a fundamental problem. And we continue to be humiliated. And people, you know that at one point when I was at university, Namibia was a 5th largest producer of uranium in the whole world. Now, there was an EPL given to an Australian guy, EPL, the licenses, because I mean, when you get the licenses, it also means the land. Yeah. So this Australian guy decided that he's no longer interested in utilizing that EPL, so he went to London. And in London, he met the Chinese, and he sold this EPL to the Chinese. But look, I mean, in some weak African country, there's a huge deposit of uranium. I have, this is the license that I have. And they sold it probably for billions. So the transaction on Namibian land was taking place in London without Namibians being aware. The money is changing hands, not in Namibia, not even a cent. So this Chinese guy proceeds to Namibia with his license that he now bought, that he now owns, and tells government, look, I want to start mining. And then it was around 2006, 2008, they established this Epangelo mining, because we're putting, as activists and scholars, we're putting a lot of pressure on the state participation in the mining industry. And they created this mining company. So it coincided with the time when this Chinese guy came now to do his thing. So he then came to government, and government said, oh, okay, but we were thinking of also participating in the mining. How do we work together? And the Chinese said, what? Work together? No, I bought this thing. Okay, can we see how we can comrade Namibia and China have historical relations with Mao Zedong? President Nyoma used to, this rhetoric. And the Chinese said, okay, fine, I'm going to give you 10% of your own resources. Ne? The Chinese say, I'll give you 10%. This is what's up mine now. Yeah. I'll give you 10%. And oh, thank you very much, comrade. Comrade, good relations with China, and China is very good.
Yeah.
Most of our comrades were telling there, we love China. Okay, then they get the 10%. So after some month or so, the Chinese came back and said, hey, by the way, that 10% thing that we agreed, you are going to pay for it.
Yeah.
Oh, but we don't have money. How are we going to do it? Then just almost like it's a dreadlock, and it couldn't get anywhere. Then Chinese came back again. Oh, so you said the 10%, you don't have money for it. Okay, no, it's fine. We can give you a loan of your own resources, of the 10%. Then they get a loan from China to buy the 10%. And these are all facts. Bank of Namibia at one point did an investigation on that deal. Then they get a 10%. Now that 10%, the loan that they got to buy that 10%, they are paying it probably over 20 years.
Yeah.
So, and we know the lifespan of HUSAB was, last time I checked, was about 30 years. Yeah. So they can pack up their bags and go at the 19th year, just the same way with Ramatex and things like that. So those type of things is what obviously created the economic development deficit, and those are the things that I'm saying, no, but these things are a problem. Our debt is now close to 200 billion, I think more than 150 billion, our debt. When I was coming to University of Namibia, our debt to GDP was probably 20%. I remember when I was in the youth league at the time, we were having a conversation with John Statler and others and saying, no, our debt is still manageable, it's still acceptable because we have not surpassed the 35% to GDP. Yeah. Now, and it continued, past 50% is almost 70%. Almost 70% now. Just quickly, now, because of that, the children that we are giving birth to, Sankara and Fanon are already in debt because of this specific arrangement. Yeah. And I am convinced that with decisive leadership, we'll be able to clear this debt through rearrangement. And we have done it, I mean, since independence, City of Windhoek have never cleared their debt with NamPower. So what is happening in terms of international debt was also happening in terms of local authority. So we came in and we said, no, let's close the water and electricity of these guys, of these ministers. Yeah. And we cut off the water, and some of them were apparently in the toilet when the electricity and water went off. So when they tried to flush, there wasn't any water coming out. But the point is that we paid that debt. Yes. And it's the same type of decisive leadership that is required to get rid of that, because it's going to be a problem, because you are going to inherit a broke country, a skorokoro of a country. So those are the things that I'm alive to. And I don't carry any baggage. The Chinese have nothing on me. Yeah. The Germans have nothing on me. The Americans have nothing on me, because we are self-grown. We are self-grown. So SWAPO, they have maybe some debt that they've given to the Chinese, the Germans, whatever they are negotiating. Everybody who would be coming to negotiate with me at State House would be seeing me as if it's for the first time. I'm going to be asking them clear questions of what is in for my country, what is in for my people, what is in for our economy. Yeah. So without any historical baggage of being in Beijing and many other places. So we're going to be very clear in terms of those things.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doc, for that clarity. We go for a quick break and then return.
The Evening Review is a daily interview-based talk show that dissects and expounds on current affairs as they occur in Namibia. The show aims at reaching Namibians of all age groups who seek better understanding of the state of current affairs in the country. This show is broadcasted on NTV, 1up2.com, and cross-shared on the following Facebook platforms: Namibian Sun and Namibia Media Holdings. The Evening Review focuses on interviews, latest news, and up-to-the-minute current events. Contact Evening at synergy.com.na. Evening Review, unpacking today's pertinent issues.
We continue with Dr. Amupanda on the show. Doc, I think for every Namibian, whenever there are elections, the question is always, what is in for me in the Amupanda presidency, in the Itula presidency, in the Netumbo presidency? What is in the Amupanda presidency for a common man?
Yeah. So basically, what has happened, and that's why people are asking, why are you doing it now?
Yeah.
Because we wanted to leave enough time for articulation of policy and programs in the actual election time. But what we wanted to do primarily is to uplift the spirit and the soul of the common man. So that's why I've been doing a lot of interviews, and I'll continue to do a lot of interviews, because a common man who had given up in politics, a common man who thought that the establishment and the political elite don't care about them, he's now beginning to think twice. He's now beginning to say, oh, did you guys hear? Job is in. And usually when they're identifying with somebody who is close to them, who sympathizes with them and things like that. So we wanted first to deal with these things of uplifting the spirit and the soul. You don't come to a memorial service or a funeral and the first thing that you will start talking about is hardcore issues that are related to the deceased. You need to recognize the state where people are. And for example, when somebody has died, they are not in that good spirit. So you have to recognize that. What is the spirit of the soul of the ordinary man that you're talking about? The ordinary man is despondent. The ordinary man is hopeless. The ordinary man thinks that things will never change. The ordinary man believes that the system is already rigged from the beginning. So you have to primarily restore the faith, because if you start talking about policy and what is in for them, they will not be listening, because they are despondent, they are hopeless. They think that is not possible. But we are generally very happy with the reception, because the mood and the spirit and the joy and the togetherness and the rhythm of an ordinary man has been uplifted by them realizing that we are participating. But you ask a specific question, and that specific question is that what is it that it's in for them? I think apart from economic mismanagement, it is also the lack of serious direction. You have to have a direction in terms of, if you have, for example, people talking about unemployment. And because there's no leadership that actually explain what is happening and dissect, people are just talking about unemployment. But there's unemployment, young people that are unemployed. You can be unemployed, but you can also be unemployable. That basically means that when you are unemployed, the assumption is that you are unemployed because government have not created jobs or society have not created jobs. But if you are unemployable, it basically means there can be jobs created, but even with those jobs that are being created, you will not be able to get a job because you are unemployable, because you don't have the skills and the expertise that may be required. Or there are also people who are employed, but they are underemployed. So in other words, these are young people who are, maybe you are an engineer, but you are at the school teaching physical science. Yeah? So you are not necessarily employed in the work that you have been trained to be able to do. That is why in the careful analysis and study of development history, you would always find that public works, it's always a very, very, very important, particularly in a state where you have low skill, unskilled labor force. So in other words, you take your country and you look at it from a vintage point and say, so what is the percentage of Namibians that have tertiary qualification, for example? The last time I checked, the percentage of Namibians with tertiary qualification is less than 20% of the population. That's even stretching it far. Yeah? So the people who are educated in post-secondary, post-matric are very few. So what are you actually talking about? Then you zoom in and say, what is the capacity, the absorption capacity in total? Not just the people standing up and saying, no, vocational education is important, but assuming what is the absorption capacity? It's a problem. Then you begin to see there is actually a lot of our biggest problem is not necessarily the unemployed, it's the unemployable. Because when our economy, even when the time it was growing, it was a jobless growth. So in other words, some guy come here, pump money in the economy, doesn't even create an office to employ a receptionist. So you immediately one of the things, for example, we want to do, and we can do, and anybody can do, including GainCorp, is to make sure that economic growth is accompanied by job creation. So in other words, you make it some sort of conditionality. Even when you're negotiating deals, you are very clear in terms of not only employment, but the longevity and quality of those jobs that are going to be created. It's not digging the trenches, because once you dig the trenches, the building, the foundation is set, those people will go back to their homes. So the problem is not the unemployed, because once you fix that, because it's just a mismatch between economic growth and job creation, so you bring it together so that economic growth is together with job creation. But the unemployable are part of the problem. So the ordinary man would need intervention at 2 levels. The ordinary man would need intervention in terms of the state capacitating and having deliberate programs of employment for the ordinary man. Yeah. Actually, not even 2, it's actually 2. So first is the state facilitating programs for the unemployable, who may be an ordinary man. That's firstly the responsibility of the state to do that. 2, the state need to create an environment for the ordinary man to be able to have confidence in seeking for opportunities, in believing that it is possible for them to be able to do that. So what does that mean? It means an ordinary man in Okalongo, there must be certain activities, developmental activities in Okalongo itself, that an ordinary man can see and can aspire to participate. Not imaginary opportunities in urban centers. So that's what you do in those countries that have developed. But also, because of also the legacy of apartheid, when part of the problem of an unskilled labor force is also because of what apartheid have done. So you would have to have deliberate intervention. And our government have done well in one thing, and it's to the implementation of free and compulsory primary education, which is constitutional, by the way. When I was in the youth league of the ruling party, we used to work very well with Abraham Yambo. We succeeded with that, with free and compulsory primary education, which was later extended by President Pohamba to secondary education. But our effort and focus was that we were not going to end there. We used to have those discussions with Abraham Yambo, and when we had those discussions with him, we're talking about changing the education system so that you are able to deal with the aspect of RPR, means recognition of prior learning. So you find, for example, in a village where I come from, those old villages of Marala, Orulongo, Amganda, and all those areas, it was a huge area. It was at one point called Ombangido. So one of the king of Ondonga, when the Angolans were coming in, they were given that area as a village for them to settle under the governance of Liaja Kawende. So that meant, when those Angolans came, they were very skilled in woodwork, imbudu. So they were very skilled in woodwork. So, for example, when you prepare the mahango, we used to do it with ongalo to sieve the mahango in order to get the flour, usira. So, but the Angolans came with they bought a net and the wood under that uti onshar. So they changed drastically that society, even how you used to pound mahango. So you would actually, people think technology is just the anything that is electronic. So those guys changed totally the rural economy in terms of how it used to operate. Some of them were iron smelters, and some of them were all those things. So it actually, the economy of those places went up because of that. What is it that I'm trying to say? Is that those people who are already naturally skilled, the same thing with the Nyembas here, when you're in the truck port just in Windhoek here, who produces most of the furnitures probably that are sold in some of those shops. So recognition of prior learning in the African, it's not necessarily because a person, prior learning is not just in a formal sense, but it's also to recognize that in an African orientation, because we are orientated through experiential learning. What does it mean? for a chef in our context, a chef doesn't need to go to school. A child, when he's already 2 or 3, they are already taught. So we are very good and successful in transferring that skill. So for the ordinary man, the state must also recognize that state of affairs, that an ordinary man is not an empty head. An ordinary man is not a person who's not rational. An ordinary man is not somebody who have no hope and aspiration. So the state ought to be able to mitigate human agency and understand that it is also possible that an ordinary man might have certain skills, and then bring those skills into the formal context, certify those skills, upgrade them where necessary, assist them, and then they are certified. Once they are certified, they are then able to engage in the formal economy. There are certain attempts to be able to do that. At one point, I used to be on the council of the Namibia Qualification Authority, where we used to have this type of discussion. But because there's no clarity of purpose and ideas on how certain things are supposed to be happening, there is specific nothing. So I gave an explanation on 3 things. That the state must be able to do a lot of public work in those specific communities of an ordinary man that they can see and believe and aspire. So when you call an ordinary man in Kalongo and you're on radio that the government is busy with these programs, he will think that those are programs of others. Why do they get in their buses from your village? And I'm thinking every day maybe there are 10 guys from your village coming to Windhoek all the time, because the badgers like to seek for opportunities. So why do they come in their great numbers?
Because there's nothing happening.
Yes. In fact, in Cape Town, in South Africa, there is a community of Mbadjas, and they go out there and look for opportunities. When people are saying, they're saying, go, the Mbadjas come back on the first day that you were told. It's because these guys are always coming. But I think immediately when they start seeing the opportunities in their communities, then they are able to understand this is something that is for me as an ordinary man.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would even want to. I mean, almost all of us, we enjoy being where we come from, but there's nothing for us there, so we become visitors of our places of origin. One of the things that you've always been, that has taken up a lot of your time in recent years, maybe the past year or 2, is the issue of oil discovery. In fact it was more the green hydrogen thing. But let me engage you on the oil discovery. If you were to be elected as president, you are assuming your administration will be the first one perhaps to be dealing with the oil production and all these things. How will me as a citizen in your country benefit from that key resource?
Yes, well, my PhD topic was the natives. The title of my PhD topic is the natives and the consolidated diamond mines and the natives in colonial Namibia. So a critical analysis of the role of illegal diamond in the development of Owamboland. So what I was doing at the theoretical level, I was deconstructing this thing called the natural resource case, where the political economists always argue there's some sort of correlations between natural resources abundance and some sort of economic stagnation. So, and I was able to prove that it is not necessarily the case that once you have natural resources, it leads to a case. And we are advancing in that thesis, which has been translated into a book, that it is actually the political conditions. I managed to get proper evidence to counter the natural resource case postulation that it's not inevitable. It is the political conditions. I indicated at the beginning of this discussion that I'm not part of any discussion that any political elite have had with the Chinese. And if the Chinese if you are watching, I'm not part of your discussion. The Germans you are watching and those Europeans, I'm not part of those discussions. But it doesn't mean that I'm not open to your engagement with you. So when this matter, how we are going to handle this matter of the oil, is that we are not part of any secret agreement that has been agreed to. And we will engage from this vintage point of what is in for our people, what is in for our economy, what is in for our country. And there must be strategic partnership and strategic relationship. You know, there is a lot for everybody in this country if there is a correct and right leadership that is very clear in terms of the development agenda. Because there is no clear direction on what it is that we needed to be able to do with our oil. Because it's simple for me. If the Qataris are not, they don't want, or they don't agree, then fine, let the oil remain in our, underneath our, in our country. They would definitely need, oil is, it's like food. You always need those commodities. You can't do away with it. So basically what we're going to do is that we're not going to be desperate for running into these deals, because we are comfortable with our mindset and our ability to be able to turn around the economy. And we're not going to be desperate to say, where's the dotted line, let's be able to sign. So we will renegotiate everything and anything that these guys have negotiated. Not that we want to scare those people away. And I'm sure those people that are rational, they will simply understand that all that this guy wants is something for his country, for his economy, and for his people. So if you satisfy that, whether you are Chinese or Japanese or Indian or American, if you satisfy our conditions that there is something for our country, there is something for our economy and something for our people, we should be able to talk. So we are going to that negotiation table without a burden. And we are also saying to our people, when you vote for these guys that have already agreed to these deals, it means they will not get out. The only option that we have to deal with the oil in the manner that we see it fit for our people is to have people who are not complicit, who are not part of those deals. Because most of these guys, what they are doing, they are busy positioning their children now. And you could see at one point, Johannes Gauhab left and his daughter is now there, and it's happening with all these kids and things like that. So they are already positioning, even if when they retire, their children will just be following that. So our message is that we will renegotiate. That's very clear that we will renegotiate those things. But we will renegotiate to have a partnership. It is possible. We've seen it happening in various countries where people have good relationship. We can have good relationship with Chinese. We can have good relationship with the Americans. We have a good relationship for as long as we respect one another. We're not going to be in this situation where our president, for example, I'm representing people and I must go to some funeral and I'm put in a bus. You know, all those things, or you go to some conference in India and they dress you like with Indian dresses, like what happened to these guys. Like it's a horrible thing. Like most of these guys, when they go to China as a delegation, the Chinese just keep these guys busy. You are seeing this and they give a lot of food and all those things, and the agreement is going to be signed 7 o'clock in the morning. So when those guys are coming to those meetings, because you travel from this apparently seeing development program is just congested, and they give you this gift and you are having a lot of gift that you are, by the time you come back to the hotel, the minister is just opening boxes of gifts. He's not even having an opportunity to read those things. And 7 o'clock, you are signing an agreement. You are just, Namibia, because the guy is sleeping because he's tired the whole time. And he just signed an agreement and things like that. So the Chinese and everybody else are going to realize that we are dealing with different people. Yeah. And this is quite a very serious. And I think I've been to China quite a number of times. They invited by, sometimes even by the Communist Party of China, and as part of the Youth League. But the Chinese treat you in terms of how they analyze you. They analyze you already, they see you are hungry. Or they see this one is, they check you properly, and then that's how they exactly, if they see that this guy likes beer or wine, when you just come there already, at the table, when they're just visiting you, there will be maybe 20 bottles of wine. So as you are talking, they come, so what can we do? And you ask, the wine is already there, 20 of them, different types. So because of that orientation, you could see already how they treat you. Yeah, but if they see that this guy is serious, they already begin to do a lot of things. And I see there's a lot of people who have already started analyzing. Some of them have even been going to our villages, checking where was this guy born, and who was his first girlfriend, and many things like that. So all these guys, you are treated in terms of how you present yourself.
Yeah.
And how you conceptualize yourself. Because if you have
Yeah.
inferiority complex,
Yeah.
they are going to take you to the cleaners. And on that score, we do not necessarily have to blame them.
Yeah.
We have to blame ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Doc, we go for the last break and then we return for the last part of the show.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and oneup2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na. Brave Namibia, for the ordinary and extraordinary Namibians.
We continue with Job Amupanda. So, Doc, the reactions to your billboards, to your this huge announcement has been different, of course. Some have called it a joke. Some have said they can't wait for elections to arrive so that they can vote for you. Others, like myself, I wrote in my editorial this week, I said that from a symbolic point of view, it's a generational victory, irrespective of what eventually happens at the ballot. And many people have tried to use your time at the siege of Windhoek to poke holes into your ability to lead, saying that there are unkept promises, land and whatnot, and that nothing really has happened under your leadership at the siege of Windhoek as mayor, or even now as a collective leading the city council. Does that disadvantage you?
Absolutely not. There's been a lot of part of the problems. Because we're managing a lot of internal dynamics, because I was tipped off earlier that there are specific people who wanted to weaken me in society. And part of they almost succeeded because I didn't see it coming by using certain individuals that were very close to our operations as activists. So much of my time was dedicated to be able to deal with those dynamics that people may not see out in public, to be able to contain this smear campaign and things like that. So I have not been actually doing a lot of interviews and a lot of engagement to clarify those things. But there are certain things that I'm absolutely very clear about, and I have been around for a while. I think about 15 years of activism. You know, sometimes I wonder, when I became the secretary, I got the highest votes into the Central Committee of the Youth League. At the time, I was just coming from school and I was based in the village, and the people were saying, "What? This boy just got #1." And at that time, there was the very famous and popular people in the Youth League, and they start wondering, but how did this guy happen? So I'm already used to being undermined from high school. I remember in one of the, I attended grade 8 at Dipumbu Senior Secondary School. So the year 2001 was the first year that they introduced grade 8. So it was only grade 11 and 12. So in 2001, there was the first grade 8. There was no grade 9 and grade 10 because we were proceeding and like that. So they made an announcement that if you are interested in participating in the SRC election, please submit your name. Now, the teachers did not realize that, because they was just doing the routine. It's always happening at the beginning of the year. They was just doing that. They didn't realize that grade 8 learners could also see. So I put in my name. Yeah. And they were saying, no, this is a joke. How can grade 8, what does this boy know about the school? Because it's true, we just came in there, but I was very clear in terms of what I wanted to do. I participated in the assembly. They would now go to the front. And when I even see the photos in retrospect, I was very short and tiny.
Yeah, I've seen that photo.
Yeah, so I was very short and tiny, and And I came forward and I just told people what this is my name, this is what I can do.
Yeah.
And the story goes that apparently I got the highest vote, but obviously the teachers could not allow me to be the head boy, because then I was made the deputy head boy.
Yeah.
So I'm always used to people who do that. There are people who declare themselves as critics of Job Amupanda. And sometimes I'm actually proud of them, because think about it. They were young people who were very far from politics. And they are not in any structure, they are not anywhere. But they made themselves critics of Job Amupanda, because I'm giving pressure to the political elite. And they are seen as attacking Job, and they are brave. They took a shortcut to politics. They ended up being interviewed by journalists, and because as critic of Job, and they made their names and their profiles, and some of them are in the leadership, they get certain positions just for being critics of Job. So there is a positive side to that, because once you are seen attacking Job, you become a friend of the political elite, because the pressure is too much. Anybody who's seen to be attacking Job is saying, oh, okay, at least now Job is distracted. So I'm used to that, and there's a positive aspect. I'm raising this positivity aspect in a sense to demonstrate how unconcerned I remain about those people who criticize you. But what can you expect a person who over the past 5 years, who just doesn't agree with Job? Do you expect them to change? Absolutely not. Yeah. But let's look at the issues that they are talking about. What are the issues that they are talking about? What is it that has not been delivered? For instance, we have indicated today that one of our objectives to the city of Windhoek when I became mayor was to uplift the spirit. And that count, I will explain how that counted against me. Because when I became mayor, I needed to uplift the spirit of the residents, the hopes and the aspiration and the belief that we can change it. And I actually came with that same conviction that we can change it. And that's why we started working very hard. And the reason why people have a lot to say about mayor, they know very well that it was just 9 months. They know absolutely well that it was just 9 months. They know very well that people spent 33 years failing to resolve the land question. They know that I had the shortest period of time, but why are they complaining? It's because their spirit was uplifted. Look, have you ever heard of people grabbing land since I left office? Not a single incident following those other mayors. Did the people get land? Why were they grabbing land during my time as mayor, and they are not grabbing land in the tenure of other mayors? So you would have to critically analyze what is basically going on and happening. But one of the responsibilities that I've taken is that the mistake I made is because I came with energy and determination, and in the process people started being threatened. And who are those? The people that I'm governing with, because we are only two there. And as mayor, you needed to. So about mayors used to lead with full mandate. And I have to connect this one. You speak to a person at 10 o'clock and you think you agree at 11:30, they've already changed their mind. And you have to come back to them again. So that, I started working hard, and sometimes people really just, they say jealousy is grade 1, witchcraft is grade 2. So then they started really having problems with me, and then say the only solution is to get rid of this guy. But is it true that nothing have ever happened? For the first time in the history of Windhoek, there's a program called Windhoek Economic Recovery Initiative. So what is that program? It's a program that I conceptualized, brought to council approved it, and ordinary Namibians with innovative ideas is the only tender. It's almost like a tender for ideas. What actually happened here, you will only find in government 2 types of tenders. It will be expression of interest to manage something, or it could be a tender to supply water, or to supply condoms, or to do whatever it is that would happen. But there is actually no tender of ideas. So we brought Windhoek Economic Recovery Initiative WERI. It was advertised widely, and people, including international companies, brought. So all we're saying is that tell us programs of employment creation and how you're going to fund it and all those things. People have been shortlisted. to come and present. I think there was about 60 applications. Some of them were not successful in the first round.
Yeah.
And that program continues there. And people who have been shortlisted and they are presenting are able to see what we have done. NamPower, if you ask the MD of NamPower, he wrote me a letter and saying, this is for the first time that the city of Windhoek is able to clear the debt. That's why I'm saying that, I mean, this 150 billion, when I'm running the country with full mandate and in full direction, if I had full power, Windhoek would not be the same way it is now. So in terms of the many programs that there's a lot of old people there that were, whose houses would be auctioned off because of the debt and things like that. And then we thought, but it's because they accumulate debt. You never accumulate debt when you have prepaid, because you buy a recharge voucher if it's finished and it's done. We bought prepaid water meters for them to continue and things like that. So we relocated people, and we did quite a lot of programs, and we actually even decided, and you see these houses that were handed over recently by the minister, and unfortunately this is part of the problem, because this mayor made a mistake because he called the minister to hand over the houses on a city's program, and the residents think this is a government program. We decided that we ourselves as a city, not a tender, we ourselves as a city, we must build affordable houses there at Komasdal. So the city now, because of a program that we decided on in 2021, the city is building houses by themselves. You remember, Toivo, in 2015 when we went, when we came from State House, we went to Koryahab and we were clearing the land and asking people to contribute water and things like that. Personally and physically, we had mobilized Namibians to do that. Of course, it took longer, but 400 plots that are there is because of our work and that program, that because of the coalition arrangement that we had with government during that time. 77, the city is actually going to build 77 houses in that Koryahab extension 4, and those people already know, and there are many young people who have gotten plots now because of our specific intervention. But people who know what we have done are not the ones that are complaining. Even what I'm explaining here is common knowledge. People know about those things. People now know that Windhoek, in the city of Windhoek, during my time, everybody was interested in what was happening in Windhoek, to an extent that people forget that there are other 57 local authorities. They were only focusing on Windhoek because the spirit was high. Even the journalists could rather attend a council meeting than parliamentary session. There used to be cases like that where our public or media space would be full of journalists, and while parliament session is ongoing. So, but a person who have make it their business to discredit somebody would not. So we don't give much credence to that, because the highest tree will always catch most wind. And unfortunately or fortunately, at this stage as president, I'm also a president of all those guys. And as president of all those, including those people who have negative opinions about me, they will need my help. Deep down in their hearts, they are criticizing. But there are some people who are also saying, man, I'm part of this campaign of Kuku Netumbo, but unfortunately, but I would just want to tell you, quite a number of us, unfortunately, you found us already in the middle of the river. The distance to go back and the distance to cross is the same. We are going to support you, but we are just going to be running the campaign. So it's not. I'm not too concerned about what is it that people are saying in terms of what is it. Even in the 9 months, of course, I could have an excuse and say that the 9 months is short. Other people have 33 years to fail. But I don't agree that we have failed. I know that we have done quite a lot, and we are taking this to the nation, because we are very clear in terms of what we can do, and we know our people know what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely, Doc.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure catching up with you. All the best with your campaign. 2024 is on our doorstep, but thank you for making time. This is all the time that we had today.
Yeah, but of course, it's also just to assure that there has been quite a very bad relationship between the presidency and the media, particularly this friend of mine, Hengari, and things like that. So I'll be...
To be resolved.
Yes, I'll be looking at the probably press secretary with media background to have a good relationship with journalists.
Okay, no, thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
That was today's The Agenda show with Job Amupanda. Thank you for watching.